Oh, for goodness sakes. I just got this dryer and it was free. Of course, no surprises, it doesn't work. But that's what we like around here. We like stuff that doesn't work, right? What this is doing is if you hit the power button, it's already plugged in right now. Hit the power button, it comes on, it does its little jingle, which I find to be kind of annoying, but luckily we can turn that off by hitting this button here, and now it's completely off. As you can see, you're able to select stuff, so it seems to be like it's okay, like it's gonna work. But once we hit the play button here, or the start, this little indicator here says drying. We hear some relays clicking like over in this area, but yeah, nothing's going on. So I'm pretty sure I already know what's wrong with this thing, and I'm gonna show you what it is and how I kind of figured it out and what happened to cause it to fail, or at least kind of like my theory. To begin, we got to remove a couple screws here in the back. There's one here and there's one up here, so I'll remove those. So once those are out, this thing just kind of slides back, and it's kind of sharp down here, so some of the sheet metal around here can have like really sharp edges. Then this just kind of lifts up and out. And as a quick disclaimer, if you're ever working on a machine like this, you should always make sure that it is unplugged, because there are high voltages in there. You know, a lot of these cables, they carry high voltages, and there's a lot of parts inside that are powered off of mains. So it's always a good idea to unplug this. So if you decide to follow along, you know, just be warned that, you know, you really should have this unplugged so you don't risk hurting yourself with something. Now with that said, I'm actually going to plug this back in just so you can hear the relays clicking in the control board that's in there. Alright, so the machine is back on, and if we just kind of take a quick listen in here, we'll hear the relays clicking. I'm going to set the microphone down right here where it'll kind of catch the sound a little better. And here we go. I'm going to hit play. Yeah, right there we heard 2 clicks. And then we turn it off and it just clicks off. So obviously the machine is trying to work, it just can't. So let's go ahead and continue dismantling this so we can get to the area where the problem actually is. And now I do have the machine unplugged because we are going to be disconnecting some stuff and we don't want to risk getting hurt. So we'll set that aside. And up here in the front, this panel apparently comes off by lifting off these little tabs right here. They sort of lift off, and I might need both hands for this, but yeah, there we go. So it's coming off. I'm just having to lift up right there, get these to release, and there it is. So this just lifts up like that and out, and we got a couple of harnesses right here. These come off fairly easily, and I can now set this thing aside somewhere. Next thing that needs to come off is the front side, including the door. So there are 4 screws. There's 1, 2, then 3 and 4 up here. This door opens to reveal that there is another screw here and another screw here. All right, so all 4 of those are out. I'm just gonna stick them on this magnetic tray over here. Just kind of keep them separate from everything else, just so we can kind of keep track of where, what screw goes where. And, oh yeah, I forgot the 2 on the bottom. So those are out. Those are going in the pile. So with that removed, there's a couple tabs here that need to be pushed down, and then this will kind of pull forward. You can use a little flathead for that or something, or you know, if you're careful enough, you could just pull it out and it comes right out. There is a connector here for the front switch, for the door switch, that we unplug that, and I believe that's it up here in the front. Yeah, so now the whole thing just lifts up. There's a couple of sort of like retainers down there on the bottom, or yeah, slots right there that hold the front in place. So you just got to lift them off of that and it'll come right out. You can see that there's some crap down there, some accumulated lint and other little bits of debris, and we'll set that aside. So now it's starting to look more like a machine, and this front cross brace here support needs to come off. There's 4 screws for this also, actually technically 5, because we got 1 here, 1 up here, 1 right here, this one right here that goes to this box the control box with the relays and all that stuff, and then there's one right down here. But we also have to undo the cabling from these little twist things. Basically, the way you get these to release is you just kind of grab the balls and twist, and it'll let go of the cable. You can pull it right out. When taking the screws off, some of them have these sort of star washers and some don't, so I guess just kind of keep track of where they go so that you can put them back in their correct locations. And I guess that's where that one goes now. Okay, so with those removed, I can lift this up now. There we go, that's it, came out. Can be a little tight, but it comes off. And here's some more of these retainers that I was talking about. There's actually 4 down here, but I had already taken this apart to figure it out, and it took me a while to figure out how everything was supposed to come off, but that's why I'm doing it so quickly now. There's a connector here for the drum light that can come off, and now this entire cable can just kind of be draped over the side over here and out of the way. So now to remove this part, we've got 4 screws. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there is also one down here that attaches this vent here over to where the fan inlet is. And you can get away with just removing this one and pulling the entire thing out, but I'm actually going to undo this one and this one over here as well, because I want to remove this entire piece here, and I'll show you why. So we end up having to remove 4, 5, 6, 7 screws total. This screw down here screws into plastic, so you kind of have to be careful with that one there, that you don't strip it out, because if you do strip it, it's going to be kind of difficult to place back on. You might need to get one with slightly bigger threads or diameter so that it'll grip. But yeah, so all those are out, and now I'm gonna pull this off of here, and I can pull down on this. Actually, it's probably better if I remove the lint screen. Give me a little bit more room to work. And now this thing just kind of drops down like that. And this is the reason why I want to remove this. There's a lot of lint accumulation in there. And thankfully this one is not as bad as some other dryers I've seen. But we still do want to make sure that we get everything nice and clean, because basically the reason this dryer failed is because of this, because of lint accumulation. But I will show you where exactly the lint had an effect. And inside of here we can see that there's lint and hair. Although, as I said, this dryer is surprisingly not that dirty. I've seen some that were completely filthy and just had lint caked all over the place. We need to remove the belt off the pulley, and supposedly it should be able to be done from like in here. You stick your hand in here, and like you stick another one over here, you can undo the belt. I kind of like to do it from the rear. That way I can just use one hand to undo it. Let me show you how I do that. So here in the back we've got 3 screws that hold this plate here, the exhaust plate. And once that's out, this thing just kind of lifts up. There's a tab down here, lifts up, and then this whole vent tube can be pulled out, and we'll set that aside. So inside we can see right there, there's the motor and the tensioner pulley. And the way I do this is I'm just gonna go down here. I'm gonna stick my hand in there, and this pulley needs to go in this direction like that to remove the tension off the pulley. I then use my other finger to pull the belt off the motor pulley. So let me go ahead and do that, because me talking about it here is kind of sucks, but okay, I do that, and there we go. Now it's off. I release that, and now the belt is free. It's not exactly the easiest thing to remove, doing it like this with one hand. If you can't do it, you know, then cool, but if not, you might need to stick both of your hands in there. Use one hand to push this up while you use the other one to pull the belt off. But as we can see, now that's free, so I can get back up. Okay, so now this part here can come off, and the way this comes off is it just lifts up. There's a couple of sort of like little tabs that fit into these slots here, and that's what holds it on, so it can't just can't just like pull it off to the front. You have to lift first and then it'll come off. So I'm gonna lift up like this and pull forward. And there's a couple of wheels at the bottom down there that support the drum. As you can see, those wheels right there, they look like rollerblade wheels. So I'm gonna set this aside now. Oh, almost forgot. We have to undo this one. This is for the moisture sensor that's located right here. The moisture sensor is just 2 strips of what looks like to be maybe stainless steel or something like that. And basically what this is, it works kind of like a capacitor, and it just you know, depending on how much moisture is present in the drum, that's how the control board you know, kind of senses how much moisture is still left in the clothes there. And now that all that is removed, the drum should just be able to come off. You can kind of loosen up the belt here, make sure that it's not snagged on anything. Trying to do everything here with one hand kind of sucks. So let me go ahead and pull this out here. I can just lift up. There we go. You just lift up from the inside and pull it out. And I think the belt got caught on something. Yay. Oh well, I'll just drop the belt down the back and have that be out of the way. So here we go. I'm gonna lift and pull the drum out. And there we go. While we have the belt out, we can kind of inspect it. Make sure that there's no fraying, no cracking. This belt actually looks pretty good. As far as the wheels in here, everything looks pretty good. It's like, wow, like there's not really that much wear on this dryer. Here's the pulley. I've heard that this is a part that might fail fairly commonly on these dryers. You would access that if you needed to replace that, although I think you could probably even get to it from the rear. Yeah, there's a screw right here, so you could probably just, you know, if this happened to break or whatever, you could access this from the rear. Hey, look, there's the cheat. So what we are interested in is this thing right here. What's that, you ask? Well, that's the thermal cutoff. Right here next to the thermal cutoff, that's the temperature sensor. Why is this the part we're interested in? Because that's what's failed on this dryer. So this connector just pulls off. If I could pull it off, there we go. There are 2 Phillips on this one here holding this on. So that is the thermal cutoff. And let me show you what's wrong with it. Okay, I've got the multimeter here set to continuity. And if we touch the 2 leads together, and it's kind of hard to do without a tripod right now. So I'm gonna use like chopsticks right here. So if I touch these 2 contacts here, we see that we have absolutely nothing between those 2 points. Well, here is a good thermal cutoff. And if we check this one, we've got pretty much full continuity there. It's almost like it's just like a continuous wire. This is what fails when the dryer gets too hot. The exhaust air reaches its limit of this thing, and this thing just basically pops open, and it basically completely disables the dryer. No power. Well, it doesn't completely disable it, as we saw. The controls still work, but it does cut power to the motor. And if we look at the diagram, the wiring diagram for this dryer, we can see that this is in line with the power line that goes to the motor. So this thing blows, a machine won't run at all. And because the motor also contains a centrifugal kind of a switch there that allows power to go to the igniter element and, you know, provides power to the gas valves and all that stuff, this fails and none of that will work. So, you know, it's pretty much a fail-safe sort of thing. So we're going to go ahead and install this. But that's not all we're going to do, and I will show you why, because there is a reason why this failed. So as I mentioned, that whole reason why this one probably failed is probably due to this sensor. Not because the sensor is necessarily bad, although that is a possibility. These sensors could fail, but I don't believe that this was the case in this dryer. Okay, so this one had 2 screws as well, and now it's out. So if we take a close look at this sensor here, we see that the little sensing element is that little diode looking thing right there. I think that's just a thermistor encapsulated in glass, and it's kind of got the sort of a diode package But you see we got 2 contacts here on the back. Well, the first time around when I removed this thing came along with it. And this is just a bunch of lint and accumulated hair that was inside of it. And if you kind of look here, it's going to be kind of difficult to see because of the shadowing, but basically this entire part right here kind of has the shape of this this protrusion right there. So what happened was this was basically sitting in the machine kind of like this, something like that. And what is that doing? Well, that's basically insulating the sensor from properly sensing the heat that's going through the vent. Okay, there. So basically it was on something like that, and there was more, but the rest of it kind of broke off and I just dropped it. So with all this lint here insulating the sensor, basically what we have is we have a sensor that's sitting on this side where it's relatively cool compared to, you know, all the air that's kind of blowing through here. You know, it's continuously heating because this thing's trying to detect the temperature, and it's getting hot and hot and hot, and eventually it gets so hot that the thermal cutoff, which would be sitting back here, gets past its limit and trips. So because this sensor is not detecting the proper temperature going through here, then, you know, this other part fails and basically indicates that there is a problem with the machine. Now, as I mentioned, there's not that much lint inside of this dryer, and I've seen dryers that have like way more lint accumulated inside of them, but it takes a while for the thermal cutoff to fail. And I believe the reason why this one failed so early without that much lint is because our sensing point is basically just this little tiny thing right here. On a lot of other dryers I've seen, we have a much bigger temperature sensor, and they have, like, you know, like a bigger surface area that's like all aluminum. I think there's one inside the machine actually that kind of looks like that. It's that one right there. That has a lot more surface area, and because it's making contact with the can, it's basically able to transmit heat a lot better, you know, to trip the thing. So it's going to take a lot less lint accumulated on this sensor to have an effect that'll make the thermal cutoff fail than it would if it was one of the other sensors that had like the big metal can around it. And that's kind of both a good and a bad thing. Good in the sense that you kind of have an early warning, you know, that lint's starting to accumulate inside of this thing. And it's also bad because it just means that this is going to have to be replaced a little bit more often. But I mean, that's just kind of a little bit of a mild inconvenience since this is a really cheap part. You can get these for like less than $10 a piece, just depends on where you order it from. So now that we've identified the problem and what probably caused it, we're going to go ahead and give everything inside of this machine a very good cleaning. I'm going to vacuum out all this lint. I might use some compressed air to try to get inside of this blower here and blow a bunch of that crap off. And next time we see this, it should look fairly clean. It looks much better now. Look at that. Cleaned off as much of the dust as I could. Some of the stuff is kind of somewhat caked on, so it doesn't come off as easily without, you know, maybe some really deep scrubbing or whatever, but it's doable. I mean, this is way better than it was when I first got it. So it looks pretty good. And I even cleaned the blades in there and the impeller. As you can see, it doesn't have a bunch of caked on dust anymore and lint. So it should perform fairly well, I think. Shouldn't have any lint accumulated in it. And I also gave the front, it's called the bulkhead, I believe, this big old thing that supports the drum in the front. Judging by all this blue around the inside, I would say the previous owner of this dryer, they probably cleaned a lot of jeans. It should run, because I'm pretty sure that was the only problem. Nothing else really seems to be an issue. So let's go ahead and put it back together and we'll test it out. And let's not forget to put the belt back on. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Okay. Take two. And got it. It's not quite on yet. There it goes. All right, now it's on. All right, I think we're good. All right, we just want to make sure that this belt is not like too far from where it's supposed to be so that it doesn't run off the pulley and pop off the motor. I think it should be okay. Okay, like I said before, don't be messing with this stuff if you're not comfortable with it or understand the dangers. So I've already plugged it back in, and we're gonna go ahead and see if it works, even though I guess we could see it from the front since it's a see-through. But anyways, let's see if this is going to work. I have a feeling it will, but I've been proved wrong before. So power it on, and I guess we'll just leave it on normal here. And let's go ahead and push play. Yes! It's working. And I just heard the valve kick on for the gas, even though, I mean, there's no gas, so it's not gonna heat, but it's running, as we can see. So I think we're good. We can go ahead and put the cover back on, and everything should be fine. And there we are, completely reassembled. Gave it a bit of a wipe down just to get it looking pretty clean there. And the exhaust vent has been reinstalled. Pretty good. So by now, it's been about 6 or 7 months since I fixed this thing. And I'm just now getting around to making the conclusion for this video. But as you can see, it's working. The drum is definitely hot. Oh, shoot. Okay, the drum is definitely hot in there. So it's been working fine for this entire time that we've had it. And one thing I will say though is that I'm definitely not a fan of Samsung appliances, like, at all. But the biggest reason why I give this one a pass is just because it is a dryer. And I mean, dryers are like, they're just like, you know, pretty dumb appliances. Let's just put it that way. Like, there's really not much to these things at all. So repairs are fairly easy, and as long as you don't completely like neglect maintenance on them, yeah, they will last for quite a while. So in about a year's time of, well, not from now, but like from when I last fix it, I'm probably going to take it apart and just do some general maintenance, you know, like clean it out again, make sure that stuff's not getting worn or whatever. But for the time being, it's working great. And I guess if there's any interest in seeing me take this thing apart in a year and see what it actually looks like inside, leave a comment down below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around the bench.